How do we install a jQuery Lightbox? So we go here back to our good old friend Google, and over here I'm just going to say right away, because I know the name of the pop-up I'm going to be using, it's going to be Magnific pop-up, right? So we just search it over here, and you can see that it's going to be opening up right away, right? So we just click it over here, and we can right away go to a GitHub where we can just download it. But before that, we can just check out the documentation, right? Which is pretty much say what type of files we would need, right? So over here, we're going to need a CSS, right? So I'm just going to copy this CSS, right? And I'm just going to put it somewhere, I don't know, somewhere over here above the animated CSS, right? And after that, they're asking us for jQuery, which we already have. And over here, we're just going to copy this, and all the way in the bottom, we're going to add our script, right? In the bottom of the body. Right, so this is going to be our script over here. Now, after that, what we would want to do is obviously actually download it, right? So what we need to do is go to a project on GitHub, right? And over here, we're just going to go to clone or download. And we're just going to say we're going to download zip, right? So I'm just going to click it over here. Now it's going to be on our downloads, right? And if we go over here to distribution, right? So we have two files that we would want, right? We have CSS and we have JS, right? But what I'm going to do is actually I'm just going to drag the whole folder, because instead of saving them in separate files, right? In separate folders, I'm just going to drag the whole folder. But because we don't need this min.js, right? Well, we don't need it for now. Let's say we're not going to be using it. You can also use the min.js also if you want. Well, I'm just going to delete this, and I'm going to have to rename the actual folder, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little bit more space. You can see that the folder they're saying is Magnific pop-up, right? So this distribution folder, I'm just going to rename, and I'm going to say Magnific over here pop-up, right? Pop-up over here. Right, so this is going to be my folder where I have a CSS and where I have a JS. And the better way actually to doing that is actually placing all the JavaScript files in one folder, right? Where we have over here this wow.js, right? But for this case, we're just going to be whatever plugins we're going to be adding, I'm just going to keep them in a separate folder, because I think it's just a little bit easier while we're just covering the very basics, right? So over here, if we go back to a documentation, right? So I'm just going to click back. We're going to go back to documentation. You can see that obviously we would need to either place it within the script tags somewhere in the bottom, or we would need to create a separate JavaScript file, right? And this is how they're saying initializing pop-up, right? So if we go back to our JS, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new file, and I'm going to say that this is going to be a script.js, right? So this is where I'm going to be doing all our JavaScript. Now the difference is, right, that they're saying us, listen, if you have over here a group of elements, right, with one parent, this is what you should actually do, right? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to copy this one over here, right? Copy this one, and that is pretty much a jQuery, right? We're just saying that once we load the document, right, over here like this, if we paste it, right? But what I want to do over here, I just want to get rid of this, whatever is in right now, right? Because this is, we're going to actually change this one around, right? So I'm just going to delete this. And if we go back over here, you can see that it's saying, right? So if we have a container, we should actually have something like this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this one over here. And within these parentheses, we're just going to copy this one, right? Now that we have copied this line of code, we obviously need to customize it, right? Because our parent container, that's not the class that we have, right? So we go back to index.html. And we check it out, this is our image container, right? So this is going to be our class. So we can just copy it like this, right? So we have a script. And over here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this over here. And we're just going to paste it over here like this. So now we have an image container that we're actually selecting, right? And over here, you can see that it's delegate the child items in the selector, right? So we can save it over here, but we're not done, because the thing is we actually need to link this script.js to our actual index.html, right? So here we were going to create a comment, and I'm going to say that this is going to be a script.js over here like this. And over here, we're just going to say this is going to be a link, right? And this is going to be a source. I'm sorry, not a link. This is going to be a script over here like this, and this is going to be a source, and we're going to say that this is going to be a JavaScript folder where we want a script.js, and over here we can just save it over here. But again, we're not done yet, because if you're going back over here to you can see this link, right? But this link is really not going anywhere, right? So what we want to do is we actually want this address, right? So in any case, if you would download the image, right, you would want obviously where it's actually located in your folder, or you can just copy this one over here, and we can just do it over here, paste it like this, right? So now we have this the same address for the animals. So now we can save it, and let's just open up over here our live preview, and let's just go back and let's just click in on it, right? And you can see that right now I have a lightbox, right? So if I close it, right, you can see that I have a lightbox, right? Maybe let's make it a little bit bigger, right? You can see that this is my lightbox. And the good news is about the lorem pixel, right? You will see the actual images are changing. Now you can see I didn't add the address for the second one. Therefore, you can see the image could not be loaded, right? And that's the reason for that. That's why we were using over here these links that actually point to where the images are located, right? So before we do anything, we would need to add the addresses for all of them, right? So you can see that I have a problem right now scrolling up and down. But the thing is, you can see for the image number 2, right? Again, we would do the same thing. We would just copy this one. We would just copy this, right? And we would place it where the href is, right? So this is going to be paste, right? And again, we're going to do this one. Sports, same way. Copy this, and we're just going to paste it over here. And after that, what we're going to do is we're going to take this one, the last one, the nightlife, and we're also going to do that. All right. So we'll have it over here. Paste it over here. So let's save it, and let's check it out what we have, right? So now we have a horse, then we have a different, I believe this is city, then we have a different sports, then we have a different nightlife. And again, let's make it a little bit bigger so we can see better, right? So this is horse, this is a nightlife, and this is a sports, and this is a nightlife, sorry, city, nightlife, sports, right? Now, one last thing that I want to show you what we can do with Magnific pop-up, right? If we have this documentation, right? There's plenty of other things that you can do. But one of the main ones always for lightboxes is the gallery. And it's very simple, right? What they're saying is, you know what? Just add this one in your code and you'll be fine. So we're just going to copy this one. We're going to go back to our script.js, right? And we're going to find, okay, so they're saying type image, right? And then they're saying, well, you can have the other options, right? So what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to delete this. We're just going to add a comma, and we're just going to copy this one, right? And then we're going to save it. And then once we go back, and maybe let's make it a screen a little bit bigger, right? And now we have our own little lightbox, right? And just to recap for all the things that we did, but maybe because I didn't explain good enough, right as we were doing, right? So if we go back to index.html, right? So once we create all these, let's say, image containers and image box, right? And then we added over here this source with a lorem pixel. If we go to Magnific pop-up, right? First of all, what we need to do is we need to check what type of files we should add, right? So if we go over here, this is going to be first of all, it's going to be a CSS, right? Then it's going to be a JS, right? Those are 2 files. So once we downloaded, those 2 files should be in our document. Now the thing is, they right away give us a path over here. Therefore, I created this magnific pop-up folder, right? But you can obviously place this in a CSS and do the linking that way, right? Now after that, what they're saying is this would be the most basic one, how we can initialize, right? But since we created over here this parent container, right? Therefore, when we created a script.js file over here, the basic one, right? This is the code that we were using because we had actually a container, right? The parent container. Now, what we needed to do over here, we needed to change the name, right? Because this is not a parent container. We actually used a class of image container. And this is for jQuery. Pretty much what it says is that once the document is loaded, right, then only run this function. So that's a very generic function over here, right? This is for all the jQueries, right? You always will want to do is over here this image document, right? Document ready function, right? And just ignore what you have over here in the middle, right? You're really concerned about this one, right? The whole ready function, right? And after we have done that, we need to go back and we actually need to add the actual address where the actual image is located. In our case, we're using Lorem Pixel, but you might be using something else. And last thing, we just looked at how we can actually enable gallery, right? Now, if you really want to go to town, right, what you can do is if you go magnific pop-up, right, over here to CSS, the whole point is that if you're going over here, you can change a lot of these properties, right? And you can actually get your own custom one. I'm not going to be doing this because that's another whole video, so we're just going to skip it and leave it like this. But the good news is that we know how to add a magnific pop-up, right, to our website or whatever we can call it, Bootstrap theme, right? So if we go over here, and we can have a nice little gallery. And what I really like about Lorem Pixel, that those images are going to be changing, right? That just because you click on them once, right, you can see that there's going to be many different ones, right? For the nightlife, for the animals. So it kind of makes it really cool, especially if we're just working on it like this. So now that we're pretty much done with a Lightbox, we're ready to go, and we're ready to go and create our theme section.